I never imagined I'd be sharing my story here. But life has a way of blindsiding you. I'm a 32-year-old man, and until recently, I was engaged to Sarah, 29. We had been together for nearly 3 years, and engaged for 6 months. Things between us felt solid. We had a wedding date set for next spring, and were actively looking for a home. I truly believed I'd found my partner for life, until last Tuesday. I came home from work expecting a normal evening, but instead, I found Sarah sitting at the kitchen table with an unreadable expression. When she asked if we could talk, I felt a cold knot form in my stomach. Those words rarely mean anything good. She looked down as she spoke. "I think we need to take a break," she said, barely meeting my eyes. I asked her why, and her answer knocked the wind out of me. Her ex, Mark, had reached out to her a few weeks ago. Mark, the man who had cheated on her, and whose betrayal had left her shattered years before. They'd dated for 4 years, and it had ended in a mess. According to her, he had gone through some kind of epiphany, realized she was the one that got away, and wanted to talk. She explained that she needed some space to figure things out. I was stunned. "Figure what out?" I asked, trying to stay calm. "We're engaged. We're planning a life together. What is there to figure out?" "It's complicated," she said softly. "Mark and I have history. I thought I was over him. But hearing from him again, I just need to know for sure." That's when I started to lose it. Not in anger, but in disbelief. "You need to know for sure?" While wearing my engagement ring, I asked. She began crying, and said she didn't want to go into marriage with doubts or lingering questions. She insisted that she wasn't planning to leave me for him, but she needed closure. When I pressed her, asked if she still had feelings for him, her hesitation told me everything I needed to know. Eventually, she admitted she didn't know. To me, that was unacceptable. I told her I wasn't going to put my life on hold while she explored old flames. Either we were committed to each other, or we weren't. If she felt the need to reconnect with her ex to see if something was still there, then our engagement was over. It wasn't a break. It was a breakup. She accused me of being controlling, said I wasn't giving her space to process her feelings, and claimed that if I truly trusted her, I wouldn't need ultimatums. That night, I went to stay at my brother's house. When I came back the next day, Sarah was gone. She'd packed a bag and left a note saying she was staying with her sister while she thought things through. I didn't know what to do. Our friends were divided. Some thought I was being unreasonable, that I should give her space to find her clarity. Others stood by me, saying her actions crossed a major line. The following days were unbearable. I couldn't eat, couldn't sleep. I spent hours staring at the ceiling, trying to process what had happened. I reached out to her twice, once to make sure she was okay, and the second time to ask if she'd made up her mind. Both times, her replies were short. "I'm fine. I need more time." Meanwhile, our wedding venue kept calling about the final deposit, and I was fielding awkward questions from family, who were still expecting invitations. On the 4th day, my brother invited me out for drinks. That's when he dropped a bombshell. He had seen Sarah at a cafe downtown, sitting across from Mark. They weren't holding hands or being overtly romantic, but it was clearly an emotional, intimate conversation. "She's not just thinking," he said. "She's reconnecting." That moment broke something in me. This wasn't about finding closure. She wasn't on the fence, she was on a path. I went home and, with shaking hands, packed all of Sarah's belongings into boxes. I placed her engagement ring on top and sent her a message. "Your things are packed. You can pick them up whenever. I've made my decision, even if you haven't made yours." Her response came fast and full of fury. She called me sobbing, asking how I could just end things like that. Didn't I understand she was confused? That 3 years together should have earned her the grace to work through her emotions? She swore nothing physical had happened with Mark, that they were only talking. But to me, just talking was enough. The fact that she was weighing whether to be with me, or the man who had already hurt her once, told me everything I needed to know. This wasn't about patience. This was about self-respect. The fallout has been a storm. Her sister called me cruel. Her best friend said that if I really loved her, I'd be fighting for her. Even my own mother questioned if I was being too hasty. But I couldn't see it that way. I can't marry someone who needs to test the waters with someone else to appreciate what we have. That's not love. That's uncertainty. And I refuse to spend my life wondering if I'm the consolation prize. 2 days ago, Sarah came by the apartment to pick up her things. She looked awful, red eyes, exhausted. She asked if we could talk, and despite everything, I said yes. She told me she'd made a terrible mistake. Seeing Mark again only confirmed that the past was where he belonged. He hadn't changed. He only wanted what he couldn't have. She realized how much she loved me, and said she wanted to come home. I looked at her and asked one question. If I hadn't ended things, if I hadn't packed your things and made the choice for us, would you still be figuring things out with him? She didn't answer. And that silence told me everything. That's what I thought too. When I asked Sarah that final crushing question, whether she'd have come back to me if Mark hadn't shown his true colors, she broke down. The tears came fast, and so did her admission. She had been confused, overwhelmed by emotions she thought were buried, and she had made what she called the worst mistake of her life. She begged for another chance, swore she'd do anything to rebuild my trust, to make things right. It's been 2 weeks since that conversation in the park, and nearly a month since this entire ordeal began. I've spent that time in silence, no contact with Sarah. I blocked her number, removed her from social media, and shut off every avenue through which she might reach me. Some of my friends said I was being cold, even cruel, but I knew deep down that I needed to be alone with my thoughts, free of her voice, her apologies, her tears, to understand how I truly felt. In that quiet, I learned more than I wanted to know. Conversations with mutual friends filled in the blanks Sarah had conveniently left out. She hadn't been talking to Mark for just a couple of weeks before our break. It had been nearly 2 months. 2 months of texts, phone calls, and lunches, twice to be exact, before she ever said a word to me. And when she finally came clean, it wasn't because her conscience demanded it. It was because Mark had issued her an ultimatum of his own. What I'd mistaken for vulnerable honesty was, in reality, a last-ditch confession after an emotional affair had already begun. Sarah had been testing the waters with someone else behind my back, while wearing my ring and planning our future. She wasn't seeking clarity, she was weighing her options. Yesterday, I finally agreed to see her again. We met in a park we used to walk through on lazy weekend mornings, a place filled with memories of a simpler, happier time. When I saw her, she looked different. Not just physically but emotionally. Smaller. Diminished. Her confidence had been replaced by uncertainty. I made the worst mistake of my life, she said as soon as we sat down. I let nostalgia and unfinished feelings get in the way of what really matters. Mark and I, whatever that was, is over. I blocked him from everything. And now, all I want is to find a way back to what we had. She laid out a plan, one she'd clearly spent time thinking through. Complete openness with her phone and social media, weekly couples counseling, and postponing the wedding indefinitely until we were both sure. She said she was ready to put in the work to earn back my trust, whatever it took. I let her speak. Then, when the silence returned, I asked the one question that had haunted me every night since she walked out. If Mark hadn't turned out to be the same person who hurt you before, would you have come back to me at all? She didn't answer at first. She just cried. I don't know, she finally whispered. I was lost. I was clinging to something familiar, even if it was toxic. I thought maybe I needed to revisit it to close the chapter. But now I realize, even going there at all was a betrayal. There was a strange comfort in her honesty, as painful as it was. No more excuses. No pretending. Just the raw truth. And that's what I'd needed all along. Not promises, not apologies, just the truth. I told her I needed more time. And I meant it. Because part of me still loves her. You don't spend 3 years building a life with someone, sharing dreams, laughing in bed at night, planning a future, and simply walk away without grief. That history doesn't vanish overnight. But another part of me, the quieter, wiser part, knows something was broken. And I don't know if it can be fixed. I don't know if I'll ever be able to look at her without wondering who she's texting, or if a part of her heart is still holding on to someone else. I don't know if I can build a life with someone who once saw me as a second option. Our friends remain split. Some say forgiveness is the way forward, that people make mistakes, And what matters is how they choose to make things right. Others say I'd be a fool to trust her again. That this door, once opened, never fully closes. And it may just open again the next time she feels uncertain. But I've realized this isn't about being right or wrong. It's not about proving a point. It's about me, about what I need, what I deserve. It's about whether I can rebuild trust with someone who chose to put our future on pause to see if an old flame still flickered. It's about whether I can stand next to her someday and truly believe I am the only one in her heart. And maybe most of all, it's about whether I deserve to be with someone who chooses me completely and without hesitation the first time. I still don't know what I'm going to do, but for the first time since this all began, the decision feels like mine, not a reaction to her choices, but a reflection of my own clarity. And in that, at least, there's peace.